Tiffany Waters took a master's degree in natural resource management at Central Washington University. And then after she graduated, she moved over the Cascades and participated for a number of years at the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission. She then became an oyster farmer. Just parenthetically, wouldn't you love being an oyster farmer? I mean, I think I'll have one of those for lunch. I think it'd be great. Okay, but I've digressed. And now she is the aquaculture specialist at the Nature Conservancy.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you all for letting me be here and talk to you today about the Nature Conservancy. So a little bit more about my background. I actually was raised in a town of about 400 people. Our joke is 400 people and about 1 billion oysters. And so when I moved back to my hometown to help manage an oyster farm, that's actually the farm that I worked at when I was 12 years old. And I started picking single oysters from 12 to 15. And oyster aquaculture is just a huge part of my community, and then for both native and non-native people in my area. And so just really excited to be able to talk to you today about just kind of why I decided to join the Nature Conservancy as well. So I'm going to go a little bit backward and just kind of describe who we are. So I've been actually at the Nature Conservancy for about 2 years now, and we've gone through a pretty massive reorganization over the last decade. So about 2012, we actually changed our mission. It used to be to protect the last great lands on Earth, and now it's conserving the lands on waters on which all life depends. So we decided to change our mission to really represent and bring in people into the mix. And so we really were an organization that was primarily conservation. We were a land conservancy. So at one point we were the largest private landowner in the US. I don't think we have that title anymore, but at one point we were. And that's still a big part of what we do, just to protect land and water. We put a circle around it, protect it, restore its ecological function. And we took that same strategy, we went into the marine space, marine protected areas, protect it and restore it. But we really weren't seeing the conservation gains that we wanted to see as an organization. And so we said, okay, we need to be able to think about people. And if you don't actually really address the needs of the people and look to people as stewards of the environment and not something separate, then we're not actually going to be able to protect this great world that we all live on. So these are our 4 organizational priorities now at TNC, and as you can see, protect land and water, still there, but now it's really tackling climate change, building healthy cities, and how do you provide food and water sustainably to a growing population. And so that's where aquaculture comes in. So we actually have a brand new aquaculture program. It's actually about 3.5 years old at this point. I was our second full-time employee. We now have 3 employees at the global staff and about 15 to 20 people working globally on aquaculture around the world. So we have a very large organization, about 4,000 employees. We work in 72 countries. We have a chapter in every state, and we have offices in 36 countries. And so something that we looked at when we started to scale back and look at the global picture of food is that aquaculture and fisheries actually stacks up incredibly well from a resource management perspective. And I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but I think it's something that is really important to talk to, because I don't think, as some of the other participants have been talking about, that it's the known environmental choice. In fact, a lot of what I do when I first came on to TNC was do a lot of what we call in-reach, because we do have a lot of people within TNC that have been working against aquaculture globally, specifically shrimp aquaculture and the impacts that it can have on mangroves. And so when we talk about aquaculture, we talk about how diverse of an industry it is, and that when done well, that you actually have a lot less pressure on the environment, that you can have lower greenhouse gas emissions, lower land use, much less freshwater use, and when it comes to the non-fed species, they can actually be restorative in nature. So this is our vision for sustainable aquaculture, which was highly debated, and now a lot of work went into kind of our strategy in terms of aquaculture, as it was something new for the Nature Conservancy to really begin in. And so now we have a lot of support and effort behind this. And what we're looking to do is sustainably increase seafood production to meet both nutritional and food security needs in the US and globally. We want to provide livelihoods within coastal communities, and we want to contribute to restoration and conservation efforts. And we think that aquaculture, when done well, can do these things. So 2 key initiatives of our global program. One we call Restorative Aquaculture. And so the reason behind this is that there's only so many limited dollars for restoration and conservation. And how can we actually work with commercial marine aquaculturists to accelerate coastal ecosystem recovery, specifically when it comes to seaweed and when it comes to shellfish? Our second is more of our finfish strategy, and that's really looking at improving governance worldwide and driving sustainable investment into more sustainable production methods. So it's just a little bit of a graphic here about seaweed and shellfish farming. So as a science-based organization, if we have a hypothesis, we think aquaculture can help restore ecosystems. We're currently testing that hypothesis right now. So we have pilot projects around the US and some globally that are really looking at the habitat and fish stock benefits that aquaculture can provide. And what's been really lovely about that is we have a lot of really great shellfish grower partners, a lot of academic partners. A lot of NOAA has been a partner on a lot of these studies with us. And we've been getting just a lot of really great response to these projects, to these pilots. We also have a video series that highlights the projects and the works that we're doing. And really what we're looking to answer is, how much aquaculture do we need to see an environmental benefit? What types of aquaculture, what kinds of growing methods should we be using to maximize benefits from seaweed and shellfish? And how do we minimize impacts? So our smart growth strategy is really, again, around governance improvement and increasing capital investment. So we recently released a impact capital report with Encourage Capital, where we recommended 3 different types of what we're calling production systems that are more sustainable ways to produce aquaculture. So one of those is offshore finfish. We think there's a huge amount of opportunity there within that. We were provided information for impact capital investors to be able to try to de-risk some of that sector, because there hasn't been as much investment in that area as there could be. Also, recirculating aquaculture, so RAS for finfish. And then our third production system is multiple, but really we're saying bivalves and seaweed. We think that restorative aquaculture has a huge amount of potential, particularly in the US. So just a little bit here in terms of the smart growth siting principles. And so as you can see, we think that siting is one of the most important things when it comes to aquaculture, when it comes to minimizing impacts and maximizing those benefits. So we have our offshore cages here, and then we have kind of potentially where you could have some net pens and seaweed farm. So I'm going to wrap it up pretty quickly, just because I know we're going to go into the Q&A section, but this is our landing page for TNC. And if you have any questions, we'll be here to talk about supply and demand and just environmental restoration in general. Okay.